Hi, good morning, all. How are we doing today?
Good morning. Fairly well.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, all. How are we doing today?
We're doing fine, thank you.
That's great. That's great. I trust that we've all had a productive week and we've had an opportunity to read the chapters and perhaps digest what we spoke on last week. And we are able to retain some of that information and then apply it in our institutions. So this morning we will start with persons that would have read the newspaper. Do we have any persons that would have read the newspaper and want to share for their 5%?
Yes.
Okay, excellent, Bria. Let me add you to my newspaper list. Go ahead.
So I read on, and I took some notes. I read article in the Tribune on the 13th. I think it was pretty much the headline, but it was about the price controls that the Prime Minister mentioned, and it was pretty much an interview with Rupert Roberts. Basically, he was just saying that he doesn't agree with the
Sorry, somebody's mic interrupted you, Bria. 1 second. If you're not speaking, could you please mute your mic? Thank you. Go ahead, Bria.
Okay. Yeah, so he was just expressing his disagreement with the price controls and then expressing probably shared concern by other grocery stores on what could possibly happen that wasn't even intended, and that he was shocked that the grocery stores weren't even consulted. So basically, they are still working that hopefully the government to set up some type of meeting with the government to discuss the price controls and then the decreased profit margins on these additional items.
Yeah, they probably already have an inventory.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He also mentioned the 6-month trial and then the new hires, which I also agreed with him. I think if they want to do a 6-month trial, they should probably try it without price controls at all. And then the new hires, Mr. Roberts also mentioned that if you create new hires to find issues with items, pretty much that'll be the only thing that they do, not considering the margin of error for these grocery stores. Because he actually admitted that when the grocery stores price product above point or the price control or above the profit margin that is controlled by the government, he did mention that it's never on purpose, it's always by mistake. And as soon as they pick it up, they always make the correction. Which
do they make a correction and reimburse? No, they don't.
They don't. So, they definitely don't do that.
Okay, so therefore, Bria is a double-edged sword for me. But continue on, and I'll speak after you. Go ahead. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, I don't sympathize with him because Super Value is a major grocery chain in Nassau.
And so I'm sure they move from millionaire to trillionaire status during the pandemic with those prices, right?
And I cannot sympathize with him. And
yeah, his points are valid, but okay, Mr. Roberts, you don't feel sorry for you.
You're not gonna get to the point where you can't afford to carry eggs. But anyway, that's not even one of the points that I had. Yeah, so a few points that I had, I agree to an extent because we see some of those non-incentive to entertain supply and demand, and we've seen that been happening for decades. And I speaking from the perspective of living on a family island in Grand Bahama, because I do consider Grand Bahama a family island. And since I was old enough to understand, I have noticed that, especially living in the States for a while, I've noticed that the opportunity for the supply and demand model to thrive in the grocery stores over there and that same model over here just pretty much don't exist over here. And that is, I mean, I feel like that's so ridiculous on a family island where y'all could potentially be carrying stock of something that, quite frankly, we can't afford and don't need. But anyway, next point. The new hires were definitely redundant with only one plausible outcome, which is to find the petty mistakes and find the store who would then pass this cost on to consumers anyway.
Right,
So
right. So
yeah,
it's a waste of time.
exactly. The supply and demand should have been able to flow from earlier, and maybe we could have possibly delayed or better been able to offset the inflation, especially on the family islands, where we would benefit so much if the grocery stores were able to entertain the supply and demand model. And to be quite frank, I see that happening at least twice a week when I cannot find Greek yogurt because the stores don't want to carry it because it's either too expensive, and if the people don't buy it, then it goes, they have to throw it away anyway.
Right, right.
And the demand for the Greek yogurt is increasing, but if they have that price point on it,
Nobody
then
will purchase.
exactly. And then the stores don't even want to carry a certain amount. But I frustrated because I can't find Greek yogurt, but yet I see an all that cheaper non-nutritional yogurt on the shelf with just sitting there.
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah, but what I'm saying about you know, this whole price control, of course we know when it was a pandemic, and of course when there are hurricanes, there's price gouging.
Right.
The price control man has come on the TV and say, we will not accept this. People must reduce their price, and we will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. Nothing has happened. Nobody has ever been prosecuted, and the prices don't drop. Plywood.
Mr. Honestly, after Dorian living in Grand Bahama, we have seen price gouging, not just in the grocery store. We saw it happen in the retail stores because there were only 2 retail stores open. As a matter of fact, there's only 1 retail store open and only 2 grocery stores open. So, right. And the 2 of those don't have the same price or same company.
And this price control place of commission or whatever it is has been ineffective for many years. Exactly. And so, like I said, you know, Mr. Roberts, we hear you, but you know, this will be a way of the people getting back some of the money that we didn't get back when the price control was ineffective for so many years. So yeah, that's my 5 cents on that here. But very good that you are following it and paying attention and have that awareness, you know, of what is going on in the country. So again, my hope is that some of us, you know, we continue on on a journey, you know, throughout all the levels. But even if it's not AML and compliance, whatever your field, whether it's credit, HR, finance, whatever, we need educated, ethical persons, right, in our country. Okay, we don't need 4 generations of politicians that are corrupt. Okay, exactly. And so yeah, we need a rise up of educated persons. So you know, get your network together and get out there and please make a difference. Please.
I also have more point about it. It was a general point, general observation. Mm-hmm. What I think would really help the entire Bahamas is that we should really address why we're importing some goods that could actually be produced probably in Nassau and throughout the family islands. And then I feel like this would create such a better cost effect for all of the consumers in the Bahamas and the grocery chains, because they're reducing so much shipping costs, eliminating duty entirely by just producing within the Bahamas. So pretty much the only shipping costs you have is shipping from the family islands to whatever main chain that is going to sell the stuff. But I mean, I think until that is addressed.
Yeah, well, the big word now is sustainability, Priya, but I don't think we can produce on the scale that is needed. You know, because there was a shortage of feed like pig and cow feed and chicken feed in the world.
Right.
And somebody in Andros created like a van, a green van, where
Mhm.
he produced feed. However, it's such a small scale that, to export
It
also
was
this, yeah,
sustainable.
it wasn't worth it. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, we need to get, the scale, and then perhaps we could export. But even if, like you say, if we do it just for the Bahamas, and like we can't even seem to do that.
Right. That
You know what I mean? So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But very interesting and good topics. And thank you so much, Bria, for sharing.
no problem.
Let's try get through to these other persons. Nottage, Antonia Nottage.
Good morning, everyone. On Tuesday, I read an article in the newspaper that I found very interesting. It was about FTX. So FTX has now partnered with Visa to, I guess, have their own debit cards to provide to their clients. So their clients would now be able to make crypto payments by debit card, and now they'll be able to make, I guess, whichever payments they want, 365 days a year. So I found that very interesting to see how, that industry is just constantly evolving. And also, they estimate that these crypto debit cards would be available, at least starting in Europe, by end of the year. And they also plan to expand into the Latin American and Asian countries as well with these crypto debit cards.
Oh wow, that is interesting. And I don't know if I told you all last week, but you all should be following, what is his name? Sam Bankman-Fried. He's the owner of FTX, 29 years
Yeah,
old.
Sam Bankman.
Is it $22 billion? Yeah. They are the people we want in our network. We want to learn as much as possible. In your subscriptions, I put the Securities Commission, that the Securities Commission may be one of your regulators. If you're a broker dealer, if you work in the securities business, and there's a fintech hub, because the Securities Commission regulates all of this new, technological, you know, area that's producing now. So crowdfunding, that is like GoFundMe. We have our own crowdfunding laws, digital assets, all of that is managed by the Securities Commission, and you really want to keep abreast of what's going on. So let me just show you, there's a fintech hub. I think you have to send a email to the Securities Commission and ask them to follow their fintech hub, because this, this is in the news every day, and they have can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So this is a
Yes.
regulator for the securities business in the Bahamas, the Securities Commission. And see, they're having October 1st to the 31st, they're having Investor Education Month. So they will have loads of, I guess, seminars or webinars, and I encourage you all to join it. This is the new norm, new way. If you don't know anything about all this new technology, you're going to get left behind. And definitely, as compliance officers, whenever you bring on a new product or service, compliance should give a stamp of approval. And in them giving their stamp of approval, they're identifying the risk associated with the new product or service. So if your business says, I want to offer cryptocurrency, you need to be able to determine what the risks are associated with cryptocurrency and what controls you ought to put in place. Okay. So outside of this investor month, the latest news shows up right here, and it tells you the various different, if they're having any seminars or anything. They have a media room, training room. In this media section, you can pull up speeches and various publications and all sorts of stuff. Okay, loads of information out there. Let me see what they have in, right? There are videos that you can watch and get all sorts of information on various like I say, seminars that they have had. So I encourage you to follow the Securities Commission and definitely follow the FinTech Hub. So this is, you just put FinTech link in the search and you can see the various laws and anything that they're talking about. You send them an email and you ask them to, you would like to follow them. And so to your email, they will send you information each time there's a seminar or an update in the law or what have you. And so this is the DARE Act that regulates, the act that regulates, like I say, or the crowdfunding, the digital assets and what have you. So familiarize yourself with it and definitely be in those conversations. These are the water cooler conversations, this new technology and understanding it. And like I said, following the principles. Sam Bankman-Fried and anybody else out there, you know, working in digital assets, okay? So make sure that you send them a note to be able to follow them so you keep abreast of what's happening, okay? Okay, very good, Antoinette, Antonia, sorry, thank you for sharing that. Was
No
there anything
problem.
else? Was there anything else? Did anybody subscribe so far to their regulator?
Yeah, well, Securities Commission is my regulator,
Oh,
so I
excellent,
subscribe to them.
Right, and so what you follow them, but also send them a note, an email, and tell them that you would like to follow their FinTech Hub as well. So you
Okay.
get all those latest updates.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
and it's that was the Securities Commission. Let me show you all the central bank. So right to the central bank website. And again, they have latest publications. And, you know, I just always follow this to keep abreast because as a compliance officer, you would advise, you know, various departments of any law change, any updates, any trainings that they need to go to. And the central bank 1 year came in and audited us and they said, Ms. Bullitt, please let us see where you would have disseminated information throughout the organization. So I said, that's an audit point. They said, yes, because a lot of laws have been updated. And if you didn't advise the CEO or finance or the relevant department, we are going to write you up for that. So I had to go through my emails for like an entire year to show them where I had shared, you know, news and information with the organization. So if you're in the compliance department and that's not one of your checks, make sure that you do it. And so, of course, daily there are news and announcements. And when there was the coronavirus, various updates, and you scroll all the way down, you put your email address in there, and they send all the updates to your email address. And so it's not that you would have to visit the site every day, but you know, just peruse your email and you'll get the important points. Okay, so very important that you are following your regulators. Okay, and the Attorney General Office and BACO and Bahamas Financial Services Board. Okay, let me see. I have some hands raised. Okay, Marina Rule, go ahead.
Good morning.
Morning.
I don't remember exactly which newspaper I got this information from because I was reading from a few, but one that stood out to me was the Bahamas Pharmaceutical Association. They was just expressing their concerns about the same announcement that the government made about making changes to their price control boundaries. And they were basically saying that the biggest concern for them was like the smaller pharmacies, like the little mom pop pharmacies who don't have a lot of cushion. in their finances. Well, of course, some of the bigger pharmacies like Lowe's, they would feel it, but they still would be able to stand their ground while the changes are being made. But they feel as though a lot of them, the smaller ones, would have to end up closing. They wouldn't be able to survive that, and they are also willing to compromise. I guess sit with the government and see what changes they can, like meet halfway so that the consumer still has a chance to get a break from the prices of everything.
But I'm very surprised that there was no industry briefing. Really?
Yeah, a lot of them, a lot of the articles that I read about the price change, everyone was saying that the government didn't say anything or even ask them anything.
Well, your PLPs in here don't beat me up, please, but there's been a lot of flip-flopping because on the campaign trail, the Prime Minister promised that there'll be no increase in taxes. Then he promised that he would eliminate VAT for 1 year, and he fell through on that. Then he took it off the bread basket items, or decreased it and added it. He decreased it, trying to fix that, and then added it to the bread basket items, but again did not, assist the people. Now BPL is going up, and now the industry is giving a lot of backlash. It's like they're continuously trying to fix this promise, and it isn't working. So let's see what happens, because even with, we see that minimum wage has increased. When they increased minimum wage the last time, Atlantis, did not support it, and they let 200 persons go. So, you need to at least have the conversations with the industry so the people or one group of persons don't have a severe backlash. Okay, and I know I was just attending some agricultural meetings. They have actually put in law that before they change anything in agricultural laws, they must meet with the industry. And that is the law. And so I attended a meeting where we said, how did you, make this decision to change the law, pass it through Parliament, and did not, consult the industry? And guess what they say? Oh, we're very sorry. Yeah, we dropped the ball. So how do you put a law in place and you are the enforcers, and then you break the law, and then you create so yeah. Ms. Roll, we'll wait to see what comes out of this. I don't know, but that's just the way I feel. It's just they need to leave it at this point, because they cannot fix this promise. And definitely it was a ludicrous promise, because everybody knows that our debt is too high, and we're going to talk about it in this class. The international regulators would have shut us down if they tried to have us not pay back for 1 year. Okay, so we'll see, Ms. Rule. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Okay, Eddie.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Morning, everybody. This week, I think it was on Thursday, I was looking through the business section, and I saw an advert for the FIU where they are saying that they had issued 3 bills that they put out there for public consumption, and those 3 bills are for the Financial Intelligence Units Bill 2022, the Financial Intelligence Transaction Reporting Regulations 2022, and they're also working on a draft regulations that would govern the industry or the suspicious transactions report guidelines. And so I went to the website, and while on the website, I found a lot of very interesting things. Apart from looking at the bills, I also took your advice and sharing it in the industry, although I'm not a part of the compliance, but I shared it with my colleagues. Just as a
Excellent.
point of, right, so I
Excellent.
shared it. And we also, well, my division, we deal with legal legislative amendments. So it's always good to know that the bill is out there. And so I was able to read through it a little bit and just get a grasp of what the new 2022 FIU, what it encompasses. And so, and looking at the whole FIU Act, I see some deficiencies that are being addressed in the 2022 amendment. And while on the website, I also was able to look at their training. I see that they also have some training events as well. And so and I also see where with the FIU, you could register as a MLRO for your particular organization. And so that is another area I need to ask more questions about. So you could register and become a welfare MLRO for your particular organization. So I felt it's a very, very interesting website, especially with the mandate that's being given to the FIU to investigate suspicious transactions related to money laundering. And piggybacking off what another student said, I remember the name, as it relates to the debit card for fintech. That there I see will definitely create some challenges as it relates to money laundering, because that there would be considered a placement mechanism where a person could use the debit card. I don't know if the debit card is going to allow them to deposit monies on it, but that there can be used as a medium, for money laundering, especially at the placement and layering stages. So that is
correct.
something.
But Eddie, you know that there are regulated exchanges and unregulated exchanges, and I'm certain that it'll only be facilitated through a regulated exchange, and which means that regulated exchange has the same KYC requirements that any other organization does.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
so it won't be. I mean, I would be very surprised, but I'm almost certain that it'll be through the regulated exchanges.
And also too with the new FIU Act, I'm also seeing where they want to have more enforcement powers as opposed to the predecessor act, because that didn't give them pretty much a lot of wide powers to prosecute or to do a lot of enforcement. And so that's why I think the FIU has been deficient in certain areas as it relates to taking prosecutorial type actions against persons who have engaged in money laundering. So it's out for public consumption, and I guess after the period they're gonna either revise it and hopefully it becomes law, probably, I don't know, maybe at the end of the year or maybe next year. But so I'm definitely seeing now the real benefit of the class, especially from that, and seeing how all of these things benefit us.
Yeah, and they tie in together.
They tie in together.
Yeah,
So thank you so much.
Right. And with the MLRO, it's a regulated function, which means your regulator has to approve. So if you're a I don't know, you're a corporate service provider.
Right. Yeah.
So you're under the Securities Commission.
You're right.
Right. So what happens is you select a person, and then you submit an application to the Securities Commission. And so with that application, they ask for a resume, proof of address, financial statements, and they do a thorough background check. They come and they talk to your neighbors, make sure you don't have no criminal activity. You need 3 to 5 years experience in compliance. And once you are approved by your regulator, you take that approval letter, and then you apply to the FIU and let the FIU know that the Securities Commission approved you to be the MLRO for this company, and then they register you. Okay. So if you get an audit check, 2 things what they are going to check for is that approval from your regulator and that registration with the FIU. If you don't have those 2, you get a fine. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good. Debbie
right,
Ann
thank you.
Grant, thank you so much. Debbie Ann Grant,
Good morning.
morning.
I just saw an interesting ad about a Jamaican company, Proven Group, that injected some brick and mortar investment and helping. I think they spent about 20 million in the project at in Nassau, the Carmichael housing project, and they also injected about 9 million in striping and pavement for Exuma and a few of our other islands. They also invested some funds into the government complex here on Grand Bahama. The Prime Minister is, have a great relationship with the managers and the players in that company. It's a Jamaican company.
So are they working with Bahamas striping then? Because I know a few of the airports are being renovated around the islands.
Well, they said that the striping group, they're
Yeah, that's probably
financing.
Bahamas striping.
Okay. And it's interesting that they're looking to do some more business here in the Bahamas and some more investments. But the players or the directors, one of them is the opposition leader, Mr. Mark Golding, of the People's National Party. And just some interesting, information about it, and be reading on that further.
Oh, all right, Debbie. A lot. We have 5 international airports, and I think in the budget, they put provisions in there to upgrade those airports, and so yeah, there are a lot of contracts out there to refurbish them or get them up to par. The airstrips and what have you. And so yeah, we should expect to see some investors, out there. I hope they did the background check on them and made sure everything is legit, because that's where we seem to fall down. Okay, so very good. Khalil Solomon.
Good morning.
Morning.
I read an article in the Tribune, I believe, and it would have been Wednesday. And the article that I read that stood out to me the most was the article on Moody's downgrading our government bonds. And the article stated that Moody's had a positive outlook for projected economic growth within the country, but they still went ahead and downgraded our government debt due to liquidity risk, which was high. And the Ministry of Finance responded to the report saying that, they still have a positive outlook on the government's plans to, reduce debt and, kind of like get us in better financial standing as a country. But essentially what the Moody's rating does is it makes it more expensive for the government to borrow, which then makes it more difficult to grow the economy. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because, if the plan that they have in place, doesn't work as they're projecting that it will, then now we'll see, an increase in the interest rates of our government debt, namely the BGRS. So it'll be good for the investor, where you get a relatively safe investment product, and you're getting, really high interest rates for a security that's generally seen as really, really safe. But from the standpoint or the viewpoint of the government, getting in debt or borrowing to do anything within the country becomes that much expensive. But like I said, the Ministry of Finance remains confident in the government plan to be able to secure financing through, alternative means other than just
Borrowing.
right. Other
Yeah,
than
yeah. So
other than
I
bonds.
mean, again, it's good that it's going to make it more difficult for them, but not if we really need it. But again, go after our natural resources. Governments really only make money from taxes and natural resources. So try to fix our natural resources. The VAT, the people can't handle right now. So try to fix that and find another way to generate some money.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, so very good. And guys, again, like I said, every morning my CEO comes and he asks what's going on in the news, and you won't have the opportunity to read all these articles, but these will be our water cooler conversations for the next couple of weeks. These are the conversations that corporate Bahamas has. If you're going to get your 5% bonus points and go to Toastmasters, Rotary, or Kiwanis, you won't be saying they renovating the airport and it's I didn't know that. Oh, we get downgraded for what? Or the FIU have a consultative document. No, just to give you the highlights, and you can go and research, and you should know what's going on in your country, and if you work with other jurisdictions, you should also be following those. But prepare yourself, because every morning 7 a.m. these are the things that we are talking about. Okay. So very, very good. And thank you so much for sharing. Anito Ferguson.
Good morning.
Morning.
I've read a letter that was written to the editor with concerns about mental health in the Bahamas. The government recently, well, not recently, in July of 2022, introduced the mental health bill that repealed the one of 1969.
Wow.
Which is
that's 40 years of crazy people unaccounted for.
Thank you. Mental illness, we know, is on the rise. If we can look around in our communities and we can see people walking around just talking to themselves, and everyone is looking around and laughing and getting their phones and recording and not understanding how these people
real it is.
Yeah. Pardon me?
Yeah, I said how real it is, and it can be every one of us. Yeah.
Right. So he goes, and I wrote it down. He says it's a taboo. They become a taboo in Bahamian society, being ignored and underdiagnosed. So the underdiagnosing part is what is really unclear to me, because if I was diagnosed as mental, what I don't even know how to explain it, the underdiagnosed part. Because if I'm in the institution and you diagnosed me, how does the underdiagnosed part come? I guess they have levels of being mental.
I guess it depends on how mental you are. Your prescription is stronger, eh? Or
I don't know, but
let's look at autism, or persons with autism. They are different spectrums. So perhaps they meant that to that degree.
I guess.
Yeah.
So someone who has autism versus someone who's walking on the street just talking, I guess, is a different level. I guess I'll have to research it further to see the different levels of mental health.
Yes.
But during the pandemic, I know people have really suffered, and with losing jobs, and it turning on hard times caused a lot to happen. So they're just saying, you know, be your brother's keeper. You can look around your household. If you see persons acting in a strange way, you know, you can question, you can read up on it and know what to look for future references. Thank you.
Yes, and it's take it seriously, guys. They are in corporate Bahamas is very toxic. A lot of people come to work hating their jobs, and you know, in the United States, there have been people that killed 6 people. One guy flew an airplane into his office, you know, just because he was harassed. And it was a very toxic environment. So please be aware of the culture. And I say that we are corporate Bahamas is very toxic, but we are corporate Bahamas. So that means all of us. And so please, there's something called colleague care. Please Google it. Um, please, you know, don't harass people. Get out of these gossip groups. Get out of these, you know, constant tearing each other down. Okay, because it's now systemic, and most people hate their jobs. So please, you don't know what people get handled, and persons are suicidal. So please don't take it lightly. Also in terms of, you know, there's a stigma with Sandilands, but outside of Sandilands, if you don't have insurance to pay for very expensive care, like where do you go to get treatment? Okay, so there aren't a lot of, you know, facilities here where you can go and get treatment, and so, you know, that's affordable. So with this upgrade of the act, I really hope that there are centers that are going to be built outside of Sandilands, you know, where persons can go and get help, affordable care and help. Okay, and if anybody is experiencing, you know, they have now made burnt out medical condition, and a lot of people are just overworked and overstressed, you know, by the things that happen in life. And so please take a break. And I always say, you know, going to work and school is very, very hard. Then you have kids and husbands and wives and families to deal with, and that's tough. It's not easy. And so I always say the key to these classes are, you know, organization. We have people who are saying that they are the valedictorian, but they are failing because they are overwhelmed, okay, just by husbands and children and work. And so please get some help, pay a little niece or nephew, you know, $5 or $10, take them to McDonald's on the weekend, get some help. You know, don't be rushing home from work trying to get to class, or cooking and cleaning, all these stuff. You need some downtime to be able to listen to Miss Bullet talk for 3 hours and function. You need some downtime to be able to retain this. Okay, that's the key to passing this. And then after you would have had that downtime and you study, then you need to do something that makes you feel good, because you can't go from work to work to work. You need to rejuvenate yourself. Okay, and these things sound very remedial, but they are very important, and a lot of persons just don't take it seriously, and then they end up burnt out, and then they end up a little mental just because, you know, they are so overworked and unappreciated. So please, you know, if anybody is having issues, find somebody to talk to. Go online and talk to a stranger. If you think that nobody is confidential, or find somebody somewhere. The important thing is just to get help. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for sharing that. Ms. Forbes.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So the article that would have piqued my, sorry to kind of change gears, but the article that would have piqued my interest would have been placed out by the Central Bank of the Bahamas, and it would have came out the same day as the downgrade by Moody's. And what it speaks to is just a temporary waiver of the investment currency market premium for resident investors. So essentially what it is just a strategy in response to the downgrade. So we know that the government offers bonds on both the domestic and the international front. So whereas this premium would have placed a barrier for investors on the international front, where because of the downgrade, it becomes less attractive and to investors on the international market. And what essentially the government still needs funds to finance the country. So this is an opportunity now for residents to get in on this side and still provide opportunity for the government to raise the necessary funds. So it's kind of like a buffer, and it goes back to Khalil's point about how as a nation, we need to get more creative with the methods that we raise funds and just simply diversifying our economy and becoming more self-sufficient, so that in terms of things like this, we wouldn't be, I guess, at such a, I don't know how to put it into the words, but just simply not being so
dependent on one source of funding.
Right. That makes us have to go out and outsource funds so on such a regular, I guess at such a high rate.
Yeah, and on a regular basis.
Right.
And we've been having this conversation for years. I'd really like to see some audit trail on diversification. What else have they tried? We've been talking about sustainability for so long, and has there been a change? Is there any other way? Or are they now fully dependent on VAT, and if not VAT, then borrow? So yeah, I'd like to see some research. There's a report I guess I could look in to see if it's mentioned anywhere. But yeah, they need to try some new things, or you know, the plan needs to be updated, and you know, they need to prove what have you done to you know, decrease the amount of borrowing. Okay, so very good, and y'all keep following it, so because one day you are going to be the future leader. One of you may be the prime minister. You know, you never know. So follow it from now. So when you get to that place, you will have sufficient experience, and you'll be knowledgeable. Okay, very good. Kenya.
Good morning.
Morning.
So the article I read in the Tribune was about the gas or the petroleum dealers basically asking the government for increase on their price margins. Their claim is basically that the margins have been the same for the last 20 years with no increase. And their cry also is that the cost of doing their business has increased, especially with COVID and also with the Russia and Ukraine war going on. But you know, with that increase in, there's gonna be a heavier load on the locals. This gas is already almost $6 now as it is. And to increase that, it would be almost unmanageable for consumers.
Right. And I really thought, you know, doing the, you know, at one point, was it Esso had gone up to 739 when I think Shell had bought futures and Rubis was still 6 something, and then a day I thought that was very should I say compassion? They said that, you know, it's about the people. It's obvious that they had lost a lot of sales during that period when it went to 739, and so they decreased it back to, you know, and so they said that we did it for the people, we'll find another way, you know. Right. So I'm very surprised that they're now pushing for, yeah, because you just give back. Now you need to find a way to make me forget, but that's so we can find a way to get that money back. But
the cost of gas now is so high. Yeah. Like I drive a Jeep. It basically,
and you gotta sell that. You gotta get one of these little tires for this take over the road. One of these little notes or bugs.
Yes, I'd want to put $20 in your car, and you know, you good.
Yeah, but not no
Now
more.
$20 is like the car swallowing it and it ain't doing that. And
Yeah,
then
but
also like with their plea, Michael Alkides basically was saying, you know, that's not something we can do. It's not feasible for consumers.
right.
It
I
can be done because it's unmanageable. People unmanageable. People can't live now. Gas is a whole bill now.
right. Like BEC. But
Yeah.
listen, I'm very disappointed because they should have bought futures. We saw that the price of gas was increasing in the US. Of course, that would have trickled to us. And it seems like only Shell bought futures for us a small period of time, but at least they did it. It's beyond me why we have a whole investment team and nobody bought futures for BPL. And now they want to increase it. I don't understand it. So if gas was at a certain amount, they should have negotiated a price, bought some futures, and sustain the price, not let it go all the way up to what $11 in the islands. That was crazy. So obviously somebody dropped the ball.
Yeah, but they just want it because they say in all of these other markets, their price margins are increasing, like steel and stuff. But what about gas? Basically, they just want it because other people aren't going up to make more money, just because their own has been the same for the last 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they shouldn't do that before the pandemic. It's too late for that now. Nothing else can go up. People just get bicycles and stuff, and nothing you can do. We'll get in shape quick. It's no way. But we'll take one last because time is going beyond us. And then we'll probably come back at the end. So Darlene, let's get Darlene, and then at the end we'll bring back Priya and Natasha. But thank you very much, Kenya. Go ahead, Darlene.
Good morning, everybody. Morning. This is my first week. I'm happy to be here. I am an employee of the National Insurance Board. In the compliance, just been placed in the compliance department, been in the customer service. So just piggybacking on what you would have said prior to the last two shares. Haven't been in school for the last long time. I see that we have a group. I don't know if we're doing group sessions, if anything is being offered for special tutoring or anything of that sort.
Okay, you could speak to Miss Dean at the office. She has a list of tutors that she could refer you to. There's a WhatsApp group, for support. It's only the students are in that. And so normally, they support each other, they organize groups, they share information. So I guess if you put your name in the chat, who is the administrator again?
Nishad, I think she responded.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, who would I be following? Would it be the Securities Commission or?
Did you get the welcome note?
No, ma'am.
Okay, put your email in the chat. Let me shoot it to you, and all the information is there. And then you speak to Miguel and get the recording from last week.
Okay, I got the recording. I got the recording. Sorry.
Yeah, so put in your email. Let me give you the welcome note and loads of information in there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Natasha, was it newspaper that you wanted to share or something else?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, it was a newspaper clipping, so I guess I just wanted to piggyback on the BPL situation with Coca-Cola, a write-up they had on Tuesday, but I guess we could go forward.
Yeah, it's okay. And we'll come back towards the end because we'll make some more time towards the end for that.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Lou. Thank you very much. And I'm very encouraged that first week off, I got some homework. So you're serious about this. Persons are engaged, reading the newspaper, sharing, and so I'm very encouraged, and I all of this points towards success and moving on to the next level. So very, very good, guys. We last week covered chapter 1 and chapter 2, and I just want some feedback on you know, your thoughts, what you walked away, if there are any questions now that we had the chance to let it resonate. Are there any questions or concerns from last week? Was it clear? Anybody? Start, Miss Bullet. Everybody going quiet now? What's happening?
It was
Have to got some names?
everything was clear.
Everything was clear.
Everything is clear. And so we walked away understanding the 3 stages of money laundering.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
tell me what they are.
Yes.
Somebody tell me what they are.
Placement.
Placement, clearing, and
Integration.
Okay,
PLI.
okay, very good. And what about, there are 21 crimes under money laundering. Somebody give me 2 of them.
Fraud and counterfeiting.
Okay,
Okay.
excellent. And of course, if we answer a question on, you know, the crimes under money laundering, and we talk about fraud, of course, there are many fraud cases out there. And in terms of counterfeiting, we know the famous George Floyd case, and we would use that as our example, correct?
All right.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Okay, so then we moved on to terrorist financing, right? And we read that article at the back of the book where we saw how terrorists finance their activities, and we saw that through taxes, they kidnap civilians, illicit oil
Extortion.
sales. Sorry?
And use extortion.
Yes, yes. So all sorts of ways. We saw further down in that reading that they say that somebody used their like social service payments, and then somebody got a loan. Okay, so why are these persons using social service payments? Why are these persons getting loans? We had Hurricane Dorian, so imagine persons going down the social service and saying, you know, I experienced Dorian, and social services, here's some food, and here we're gonna give each person $300, and they send that money on to ISIS. Or you go into the bank and say, I need to pay school fees. And instead of paying school fees, then you send that money on to ISIS. And again, we say, of course, that's ludicrous. Like nobody would really do that. How are they convincing persons to do this? The same way if it was TD Jakes or Billy Graham, nobody can tell you don't believe in Billy Graham, he ain't real. And nobody can say TD Jakes, he ain't real, correct? Or any of these local pastors that we follow. So in the Middle East, their motive is ideological. This is their belief. They believe if they become suicide bombers, or they support ISIS, or you know, they participate in these various attacks, they're gonna go to heaven and be rich and be on streets of gold, right? And so just thank God that we grew up believing more so in Christianity than is it what in it is Islam, and we support, or Muslim, being a Muslim, and you know, we support Christianity, and we are not taught that we need to kill ourselves in order to, you know, go to this promised land or whatever it is. Okay, so that would have been our takeaway. And of course, we know that their objectives are to have a safe haven. We remember that bin Laden lived for 10 years. And like I said, if I lose my job now and I tell my mommy I'm coming home with my 10 children and my 10 husbands, concubines, she ain't even let me in a house. No man could come. And every single day she could say, "Will you find a job yet? But you want, I can't even turn the air conditioner on." Right? But bin Laden lived for 10 years comfortably with his wives and his kids. He needed insulin every day. Why? Because he had a very strong network. Correct? He might have had some money, but for 10 years, he had to have a very strong network. And nobody, the US, he was on the most wanted list, you know, and so, and they found him living right outside the Defense Force base in Afghanistan, eh? So that means you have a very, very strong network of persons that will support you. And of course, we know living in the Bahamas now, it's all about who you know. Okay. So we want to build our network as strong as Ben Laden, but we want to use it for good, not for bad, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So networking is important. That's why I say you should know this is a big group. A lot of very intellectual persons are in here. And by the end of this class, make sure you have all their names and their numbers. Okay. And leverage and share each, you know, others' knowledge. Okay. You need 5 like-minded persons in your group. And I always tell persons to see 5 people that you hang out with on the weekends. You know, there are 4 weekends, 3, you party hard and you relax. 1 weekend is for brainstorming, trying to put together business ideas, trying to make the Bahamas better, and, you know, just get that group together to help you, you know, achieve your goals. Okay. And so back to terrorism, their objectives, like I said, they need to recruit people just like the Defense Force. They need weapons. They need a safe haven in case we blow up somewhere. This place got to be safe for many, many years. They need travel, weapons, material. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I say training too.
Yeah, training. So in question 2, it asks you of the homework, it asks you what are the objectives. So those are the objectives, and this is how they do it. Through charity is, like Rodney is saying, self-financing of sympathizers, drug trafficking, kidnapping, all sorts of stuff. Okay. So, right, and like we talked about domestic terrorism as well, primarily from gangs, correct? In the Bahamas is our problem. I mentioned that in the United States, there were, in 2019, there were more than 365 cases of domestic terrorism in that 1 year. And there's only 365 days in a year. So of course, America sneezes and Bahamas catches cold, right? And so we have seen some domestic terrorism here where we had 8 persons shot at the Fox Hill Park, 13 persons shot at a baby shower, then 6 persons shot in Jerome Avenue. Okay, so I want you to have that awareness, you know, of our culture mightn't be so is related from our gangs. Okay, and so don't turn a blind eye to it and just focus on international terrorism, but do some research on domestic as well. Rodney, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Bullet. One of the things that stood out to me when I read up on it, the difference between terrorism and money laundering, they say with terrorism or counter-financing terrorism, it has like an end, whereas all it happening just to facilitate an event, whereas money laundering is like a never-ending cycle because they keep on wanting to get the proceeds of crime to wash back in. And then a scary thing was too, what I read in the chapter was that well, money laundering, we think, this large sums of money. For terrorism, they give the SATA, how much they use to do certain bombs and stuff. Fellows and spend like 10, 20 grand, and that's facilitating killing like thousands of persons. So you gotta be mindful of like not just the large transaction, but even like smaller transactions, because like you said earlier, just ideology that they following. They ain't get what they got once. There's something they can facilitate to push their ideas across. You gotta be careful.
Correct. Correct. Very, very good. And of course, we know they landed in Freeport in 2001. However, our immigration was very vigilant. They didn't have the proper visas and they sent them right back. We have 5 international airports. These same airports, Debian, that they upgrading right now. Okay. I hope that they don't only upgrade the infrastructure, but they upgrade the training so that the immigration officers can continue to be vigilant and do their checks and balances and don't get no tip that day, and that these people come through and infiltrate our country. So very good. Eddie?
Yes, I just would like to add, especially with all of the crime that is going on the U.S. Department, the embassy here keeps track of all of that, and they advise their citizens accordingly. Just as recent as I think yesterday, they caught someone downtown with a gun in their vehicle, and so when they tend to interpret this, it gives the aura of probably terrorism because why would the fact that any tourist areas where they catch people with gun or illicit drugs and all that, I think the embassy is very cognizant of that, and so that there could, if it's misinterpreted, could mean that it could have been a possibility of a terrorism attack or some type of attack against Americans or whatever. So even that with all the mass shoots we've had in the past couple of years, that there also gives the aura of domestic terrorism, which is something that in the international arena doesn't look good in the Bahamas, and so that's I just want to add that.
Right,
Yeah.
we don't need any more blacklists or black flags, because if it's 2 or more Americans, then they could consider it terrorism. So yeah, we have to be very careful of this crime. I mean, it's completely out of control, and we really need to get to the root and get a handle on it because it's completely out of control. Ferguson, Anika.
Ms. Bullard, I read where they said terrorists, I didn't forget my thought. Terrorists, one of their basic goals is their act of crime is for political gain. I'm not saying that, I'm pretty sure that's what I read. One of the goals.
Yeah, a lot. Well, of course, if they have a like-minded person in power, then obviously, that'll be to their benefit. So let's look at how Bin Laden hid right outside of the defense force in Afghanistan. Obviously, the Prime Minister of Afghanistan or the president was aware that he was there because I think President Obama reported that 3 times they had a very, very close lead on capturing Bin Laden. However, they always involved, they didn't want to be intrusive, so they always involved the Afghan military. So of course, just like if there's a big drug deal in the Bahamas, you have to get a Bahamian police. So the same thing. So the one time they realized that something was blocking them every time they were so close. And so this 3rd attempt, they did not include the Afghan president or the military, and they went into Afghanistan. And then they just say, well, we apologize for not including you. And that was the time when Bin Laden got caught. Okay, so obviously, various governments, they protect who they want to protect. Let's look at Putin and this basketball lady who was arrested. He is negotiating for a terrorist to come out of jail in order for exchange for her. Okay, so yeah, a lot of governments are very corrupt, Anika. So yeah, and they will send money to support the campaign so that if they are successful, that president or prime minister would support their agenda. Okay, so they probably were talking from that aspect. Go ahead, Rodney.
Sorry, just to clear up, because I read that part too. Define terrorism as forcing a political party to do something or to not do something. And that's what she's talking about. Because it's just trying to generally define terrorism.
Okay, very good. Thank you for sharing. Okay, guys, so we all seem to be alert, aware. Did any of us watch Dirty Money? Did we have the opportunity to watch that as yet?
Yes, I started to watch it.
Okay, and give me some feedback. I mean, were you all on the end of your chairs and were you all surprised, or was your take?
Very surprised.
Yes. So don't go in these institutions. I mean, people just have a heart attack, right? Remember, we just here to advise. When the institution is not listening to your advice, you have to determine that you see in the place for me no more. I better report them and leave, right? And go somewhere else. Because I get end up dead or in jail. So you do have those types of institutions. So very good. Okay, Trevor, give your feedback.
Yes, so that was a really big case of fraud. So what they was doing was producing these new Volkswagen Jetta. And
Oh,
they
that's that you talking about the Volkswagen fraud. Yeah.
had
Okay.
30, right. So they were producing these cars and they were shipping them to America, and they was telling them that, okay, we fixed the emission problem. But what they were doing is they had a defeat device. So when they test the cars in the lab, it was having lower emissions than when they test them on the road. So there's a group of college kids, they did the test themselves and they were like, why is this happening? And eventually it caught the attention of CARB, the California Air Resources Board, and they were looking deep into it saying, it has to be because they ruled out everything. And they said it had to be a different problem. And they found out that they had a cheat device where we're lowering the emissions in the lab. And basically that's fraud because they were false advertising, telling people that they're selling cleaner cars when eventually it was the same. And it was even dirtier than before.
Right. And so you see how much Volkswagen used to be a little high-end car. Now you see how much of them on the roads for cheap, right? You can easily get a Volkswagen.
Right.
Yeah. So they defrauded. Did you watch the one on HSBC? Trevor?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I want you, when you have some time, watch the one on HSBC, like 2 episodes from that one, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Bria?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to speaking to the Volkswagen episode, I just wanted to point out how crazy that was to me, that the Nazi ideology was so strong in American culture back then, and in 2015 was still continuing to have so much influence. I mean, that stood out a lot to me, especially for a country that got heavily involved in World War II. That was, I mean, it's just crazy.
Crazy, right. And like I say, for awareness, because you can't imagine these things, right? And then the next big thing was they had a system that a new system nobody understood, okay? And that happens a lot in these institutions that we work in. We don't know how the system is worked. We hope it working properly, this and that. Take it seriously. Get the developers in to train you. Document everything. Go into the little button that says help and print out their manual. If their manual is not in English, request it, because a lot of these systems come out of Switzerland and the Swiss banks, and they in French. Demand that it's in English. All of these things causes helps them to defraud the system. Don't take it lightly.
Exactly. Okay? I think the thing too is to stop being so free with our benefit of the doubt.
Yep. That instinct is there for something. To save your life. Okay, Shanice, go ahead. No, Shanice?
Yeah. Hello.
Hi.
So yeah, I wanted to speak to the HSBC bank debacle. Okay. When I watched that, they were essentially the middleman for the Mexican drug cartel. It's like their compliance department was non-existent. They just let the Mexican drug cartels get away with anything, with everything, you know? And like they just turned a blind eye, and you know, persons saw the suspicious transactions happening and no one reported anything until I think the US government, I guess, caught wind of it. But they were essentially let off with a fine that, to me, they could have been fined more, because I think it was like 1.9 billion or something that they were fined, but that was no money compared to how much, you know, HSBC probably generates annually. So I just felt that they really should have had a stronger, you know, compliance department in the beginning. And that just speaks to how important compliance is, you know, to regulate these transactions.
Right. But Shanice, did you see the Attorney General just take like a slap on the wrist?
Yes. And like, oh my goodness.
Yes. So this is why I'm saying don't have a heart attack over these institutions. When you see they doing nonsense, they have people in higher places. And I went to a seminar where they started off with what happens if your institution gets charged 1.9 billion. And so all of us broke, of course. So we was like, oh my God, we would shut right down. But no, that was 5 weeks for them. So it depends on the size of your institution. Okay. And then you see how they defrauded the system? They hyphenated names.
Yeah.
Okay. Put a full stop behind it. And so make sure if you have 800 accounts, yes, you have 800 accounts, make sure that 800 people reflect, because every night World Check or LexisNexis is checking those names. And if it's Shanice.roll, the World Check won't pick up because that period is in there, or that dot is in there, or that comma. So please take it seriously. Okay, please take it seriously. Robin?
Good morning.
Morning.
The one that from the dirty money, the Wells Fargo case.
Okay.
That was, yeah, that really stood out to me. Even where they had employees forcing their family members to create multiple accounts, because they had a call each day for them to open up certain accounts. So, and the lady, she was kind of doing the maths, like, okay, for example, there's only 1,500 persons, so you already have 1,500 accounts. Like, how could we make this goal when everybody already has an account? So what they did, they had persons opening mortgage accounts, savings account, like putting pressure on them, like any kind of account, like just tying them in. So it was like, something is not right here, because you have these elderly people, you have sick people, like they didn't care. They just, and even when employees tried to report it, when they know something was suspicious, like they know it would eat their job. And the bank was so powerful at the time too, like if you reported or tried to come for them, they made it where you wouldn't be employed to any other bank.
Right. And you see 4,500 people got let go, and the bank's still standing, right?
Yes.
The bank's still standing. And a lot of people just
like
got fired for
intensive.
negligence,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the CEO had to step down, and he got sued because that's when I think an attorney of the state or something stepped in, and like there was like something really suspicious going on with this bank. How are they doing these numbers?
Right.
And
right.
yeah.
But let me tell you, Robin, even in the Bahamas, we rolled out SMART goals where, the goal should be specific and measurable and attainable and what have you, but that's not happening. The targets that are set each year are still not reasonable, not attainable. And sales officers are so desperate for their jobs because they get school fees and mortgages to pay. They're compromising themselves trying to meet these ridiculous targets. Okay, so please don't get caught up in that rut. If you look at the economy and see that there's no way, 1 year to one of these big major Canadian banks, the person or the Freeport won salesperson of the year, right? And I was there auditing them, and we just had them. We said, wait, Nassau people couldn't meet their target, but the salesperson of the year out of Freeport, no way. The next day, we got 100+ emails saying that needed to be investigated, and we sat there saying something was wrong. That lady, she resigned the next day. Okay, she didn't even get to get her prizes and everything because she knew she was found out after she walked up there to get that award. What she was doing is, if you came in for one service, she gave you 4 or 5, like a credit card, a line of credit, or this and that. And before the first payment was due, she closed them all out. So she, inflated her totals, right? And after, I think after the first week, they just record, oh, you made all these sales. And then they don't even look a month later to see that, or the people never made the first payment. So please don't be caught up in compromising yourself to meet these ridiculous goals. Okay, it's happening all over in many institutions. Okay, compliance officers, get on it and check them to make sure that the goals are in line with the economic climate and they are attainable. Okay, so very good. Antonia?
Yes, so with the dirty money, the episode about the cartel bank, what it reminded me of, Ms. Bullard, now I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember exactly how you said it, but you had made mention to sometimes when these companies are found out that they are, doing these illegal activities, that the rich people per se don't go to jail. It's always the small man or the people who don't have the money, I guess, to bail themselves out in a sense, who they're the ones who end up taking the fall for it per se. So as I was watching it, that's what I thought about, because with HSBC, they end up pleading guilty to all of these violations, such as the Bank Secrecy Act, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and then the Trading with the Enemy Act. But at the end of the day, the bank was never prosecuted. None of the senior executives or anyone was ever prosecuted. And then after all of that, the episode said that in December 2017, the US Department of Justice, they dismissed all the criminal charges against HSBC. So what was the purpose of all of
Antonia,
this?
did you not see that the Attorney General was retiring and got a job at the law firm that represented the bank? You didn't see that part?
Yeah, that just
okay. So that's why. That's why the Attorney General of the United States is now working for the law firm that, you know, so that's why. So that's why I'm saying, you know, don't get a heart attack over these banks and their principles and their policies. When you see they are going south, you start to look for a job and you make sure that you are not negligent. This is why it's important to know the policy, know the procedure, identify the gaps from the regulator, and be able to explain yourself so you don't go to jail. Because all kind of fishy business that we don't know about. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Kenya?
Right. So yeah, I was going to touch on the Wells Fargo one, but one that got my attention, the episode with the Malaysian government taking the taxpayer money that they were supposed to invest to return to the taxpayers. His stepson basically squandered the money with celebrity parties and movies and all that stuff. And he basically, I guess he's still on trial for it now, could possibly face life if he gets convicted. But it was just so crazy that all of this money, over all kind of billions of dollars basically, and just going to all kind of different shell companies. And when it came back to them, basically they invested in this company that nobody knew what the company was about. Nobody knew what they were doing. They just had this expensive commercial, and that commercial didn't even say what the company was about.
Right.
But all of the money that they got, the Malaysian Prime Minister, he ended up getting almost $700 million in a transfer. And he claimed it was because it was a gift for being in office, which didn't make no sense.
But they're not allowed to take either. So good guys. Like I said, I'm very encouraged that all of you watched and all of you are aware. And that's the whole point of, you know, things may look a certain way, but you'll be very surprised when you investigate and you do research how things really, really work. Okay, so please always investigate, always do your research, always make sure that you know the full truth, and that but the truth, you know, and do your own investigation. And even when you read articles, you know, there's always two sides of the story. If somebody heavily affiliated with the PLB, they can tell their story one way. If they heavily affiliated with the FNM, they can tell their story the next. Just look at Fox News and CNN. If you're a Republican, you watch Fox News. If you're a Democrat, you watch CNN, right? So know the full story and the truth, okay? Before we move on to the book, Anika corrected me. It wasn't bin Laden in Afghanistan. I was wrong. It was in Pakistan. I can't pronounce the word, Anika. Abu Dhabi, Pakistan is where they killed bin Laden. So yes, it wasn't Afghanistan, it was Pakistan. Right, and it was the Pakistani president that was working, they against them. Okay, so thank you, Anika. Yeah, Miss Bullet have a lot of things in her head, and sometimes I'm confused, and sometimes I guess wrong. So fact check Miss Bullet's story. Make sure I saying the right thing. Okay, guys. Very good. Lakeisha Thurston.
Good morning, everyone. Ms. Bullitt just wanted to share with the group something that I would have experienced. I'm an insurance regulator, but when I worked in the insurance industry, we had this thing in the insurance agency where they would give you something, an incentive called blood money. And it was where if you are an insurance salesperson, you commit to making a certain amount of money per quarter, and you would be given ahead of time, so in advance pretty much, a certain amount that you are committed to make during the course of the month. And what we found was that persons would make these high commitments, get the money up front, and at the end of the quarter, in some cases they made the commitment, in some cases they didn't. But with the ones that the commitments were actually put on the books, cover was actually bound, within the second quarter, the policy would lapse. And so although it came back out from the back office, the salesperson would have already gotten that money up front, and check was already cut, they've already spent the money. And so it would only come out now as a slow deduction, from their salary, but the monies was already paid up front, and a lot of salespersons took advantage of this particular thing. And so the agency had to stop it because they were losing so much money, and repayment was coming in, very, very slow. And so it was causing the agency itself to be at a deficit.
Okay, wow. Yeah, so again, all sorts of things, and this, like I say, the people that steal or infiltrate or, do all these scams, we just showing up to work every day, being honest, trying to do our job, right? And so you have to be aware, you have to be knowledgeable, and you have to know how the system works, or how what the policy says, and whether or not these things are legitimate, because they'll have you signing right off on policies, Thurston, and it's fraud, it's fraud.
That's correct. It's fraud.
Right. Yeah. So you have to make sure that you can distinguish this. And again, to the Wells Fargo case, 4,500 people were let go simply because they were negligent. They signed stuff, they approved this and all sorts of stuff. Okay. And don't think that, this happening right here in the Bahamas. Okay. Look, Thurston just gave us a full example. Okay, so please be alert, be aware. This is the training to give you awareness. Bria, we can't dream of these things. Our imagination in this far, so this is why, networking and going to these conferences and reading help you to be exposed to things you never even dreamed of. Okay, good. So very good, Thurston. Thank you for showing us that it's very real right here in the box. Okay, so very good, guys. Very enthused. Okay, so we're going to go into the chapter. I hope that some of you had the opportunity to read. And again, like I said, this is a journey. This is just the introduction section where these pages are 2 or 3 pages long. Some are 1. Onto intermediate, 3 or 4 pages, and then on to ICA, 70 pages per chapter. Okay, so please get into the practice of reading, and let's having a discussion. But it looks like we were able to retain some stuff, and we went excellent that we went did some further research. Okay, so very good. So I may have an older version of the book. Do you have the international standards and the Bahamian legal system as your next 2 chapters?
The international standards, yes.
And what's chapter 4? Bahamian legal system?
That's number.
No, chapter 4 is Bahamian legal system, and chapter 3 would be the international standards.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, very good. Okay, so we all on the same page. All right, so international standards. Basically, and this we'll go straight into chapter 4, because chapter 4 just talks about the laws. but this is how the umbrella works. At the top, there are the international regulators, which are the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, the CFATF, which is a division of the FATF, the Caribbean region. Of course, the Bahamas is a part of the Caribbean region. The World Bank Group, the International Monetary Fund, the UN, and the Basel Committee, the Wolfberg Committee. All of those groups are considered international regulators, which means they regulate the world. Okay? And so each country is supposed to take the recommendations from these international regulators and put them into law. Okay? Once they put them into law, then their regulators locally create guidelines. Because if you look at the law is in layman's terms. They talk about instrumentalities and all sorts of Latin terms. And so you need the regulator locally interprets it for each sector. Okay, so international regulators, Bahamian law, regulators, and then your internal policy within your organization. Because even though you are a bank, you may not be an international bank. So the regulator, 96 pages, talks about international banks and commercial banks. Or they may talk about credit cards and you don't offer credit cards. So you take the pieces out of the local guidelines from the regulator and you implement that into your organization. Okay, so these regulators call them recommendations. But of course, we know if we don't put these recommendations into law, what happens?
Fraud.
No, we get blacklisted. As a country, they say recommendations, but if you don't put them into place, you get blacklisted. So is it truly a recommendation?
No,
okay.
so
There's a guide.
Yeah, so let's just look. And we looked at this last week again. The Financial Action Task Force, they came out with the 40 recommendations. And remember, I tell you, when you write a essay, make sure if you quote in law or policy, you look at the updated. So there's a 2022 or 2021 updated version. Make sure you get the correct version. This have 134 pages. The next thing you do is only go to the table of contents. What we looking at? The 40 recommendations. And again, just for a visual, the first recommendation says assessing risk and applying a risk-based approach. That's recommendation 1. You go down, there are 40 from recommendation 10 on customer due diligence to recommendation 25. All of that speaks to customer due diligence. So 15 of the 40 recommendations are related to customer due diligence. Okay, so the book goes on to talk about the FATF, and it says that they were established in 1989. Their purpose was to develop standards and promote policies and national and international. And again, whilst we're looking at this, we want to look at what the homework question is, so we would know how to answer it. So that's their purpose. And when they were open and they were to promote policies, both national and international, to combat money laundering, financing, and terrorism financing. Okay.
Ms. Bullitt.
Yeah.
How do we find this particular? It is a 2022 updated version.
The updated one. Go right to the FATF site.
Or the FATF.
Yeah. So again, you could follow some of the international regulators. Right, I just put the local one, so just put it in and just there's somewhere on here that you could subscribe and you'll follow us on these or get an email alert right there. And so here it is right here, right on the front page. It says the standards, just the 2022 version and download it.
Okay.
Okay, if you go into Google and just put 40 recommendations or for any law, it always brings up the old one. People open that and they write a whole 3,500 word essay on that and they get no points. Please check your dates. Yes, check your dates. Okay. Okay, so the question goes on, not only asking you what their purpose is, but they have the following tasks. So they set international standards, they monitor compliance with AML, CFT standards, they promote worldwide application of these standards, they encourage compliance of non-FATF members with these standards, and they do studies on methods and trends of money laundering and terrorist finance. Okay, that is the 40 recommendations. That is the FATF task. Then we move on to the CFATF. So of course, they are regulating the world. So there's an Asian division that deals with Asia, a European division that deals with Europe, and then of course, the Caribbean region that deals with the Caribbean. Okay, then we go on to look at the IMF. And a part of the IMF, what we are familiar with is the World Bank. That's who we always borrowing this money from. And the World Bank provides financing, policy advice, technical assistance, and focuses on strengthening the private sector in developing countries. And of course, we borrow heavily and get a lot of funding from the World Bank. Okay, and so the IMF, again, another international regulator. And last week we talked about having a seat at the table. Now, what I realized is that putting recommendations and policies and laws in place are very expensive, because you can't just update the laws of the Bahamas and say this what persons must do. Of course, it has to be enforced. And so back in 2000, of course, we took a staggered approach, because like I think it was somebody you said about the mom and pop shops in the pharmacies, they simply cannot afford the hike in duty or the changes that are being made by the government. And so those may make it, but they will not make it. And so basically the same thing happened with the banks and other businesses, law firms, accounting firms. When they became regulated by the Compliance Commission, they simply could not afford it, because at minimum you need a compliance department. It can't be a one-man band. So here it is, you have a $60,000-$70,000 MLRO you need, then they need an assistant, then you need a system, and then you have to train annually, and then you have to update all these policies and procedures. And so if you have 800 clients, one person can't do that. So you may need 10 people in your department, okay? And remember, compliance makes no money for the business. And so they invest all the money into sales. The only thing compliance does is save the business from getting fines and shut down. But most of us say, oh, they ain't gonna ever shut us down. So they invest all the money in sales, and so therefore it's expensive. And so some banks did not make it. And as we can see, a lot of banks, and especially offshore banks, shut down because the law, one of the laws that were in this 40 recommendations was for taxes. And so therefore we were known as a tax jurisdiction or a tax haven. And it made, if you still had to pay the tax in your country, why are we paying you $10,000 in fees each year? We might as well keep the money at home. So here we lost a lot of tax dollars from FACA and CRS right from these 40 recommendations. Okay. Now, normally we see the regulators, the big bad regulators, who don't give us a chance, who they trying to wipe us out off the mark via the competition, and they don't listen to us that we are a small jurisdiction. We can't just implement all these laws and hire up all these people and then make them enforce it, right? And so we have always been, Peter Turnquest has been against the FATF and the OECD. So as Ryan Pinder, when Ryan was the, I think, Minister of Investments or what have you. And so it isn't a PLP or FNM thing. It's a country on behalf of the Bahamas. We've been telling them, blacklisting us immediately causes reputational risk. And so therefore, they have to give us a chance. They can't put us on a scale of like with the United States on, because we're so much smaller, and we don't have the funds. And so, like, we took a staggered approach, like I said, to put these laws in place so that we don't wipe out our entire banking sector back then and now all these other sectors. And so, because we always feel like they're the big bad regulator and they're always against us, in 2018, they came in and they did an assessment. I think they were doing the financial sector assessment program, where they, again, they were doing some updates and some changes. And so they came in to look at the country's infrastructure, the payment system, the legal framework, and different stuff. They sat with the central bank. And whilst they were here, this was in 2018 now, so we have to put ourselves in 2018. They looked at our disaster recovery plan, and they basically said that it was inadequate. And so, of course, they were doing an audit. And if any of you have ever been in an audit, you try to rectify some things before the auditor leaves. So when they send out that big bad report that of course some people get fired, it don't look so bad. So one of the things the government, I think it was the FNM at the time, said we'll fix this disaster recovery plan right away. And so there was a insurance that the PLP had previously canceled, and it was warranted that they canceled it because it cost $900,000 a year. And we had hurricane walking in, and when we tried to claim on that insurance, they said that we didn't have excessive rain, so they didn't pay us. Then we had, I think it was Hurricane Maria or Hurricane Matthew, and we tried to claim then, and then they said it was in a category 5. So we say, the PLP said, no, we ain't paying this $900 because it look like there'll never be a category 5 or excessive rain for us to claim, so this is a waste of money. So anyway, we say, the FNM said, well, anyway, we have to fix this before they leave. And so what we could do is we could pay the $900,000 insurance. We could put a line of credit in with the IDB, and we are going to put half of the dormant funds at the central bank. We're going to change the law to make the dormant funds unclaimable after 10 years. And so what they found that central bank had held more than $88 million in dormant funds. And so they said $44 million of that is going to go towards the disaster recovery. There's an essay question on the final exam, so make sure you all know these 3 things. Line of credit with the IDB, $900,000 insurance, and $44 million of dormant funds were all put in place in case we had a disaster. Okay, this was 2018.
Say it again.
So $900,000 insurance, $44 million of dormant funds, and we changed the dormant law to say that you couldn't come and claim because banks hold dormant funds or unclaimed funds for 7 years, and then they send it to central bank. Central bank will then hold it for 3 years, and then you can't get it afterwards. But if you come within those 3 years, then it doesn't belong to the Bahamas. You could claim it and take it back. However, when they checked the records, it was $88 million in unclaimed money that they received from banks over the years.
What?
Yeah, $88 million. Yeah, each year, when I worked at the Royal Bank for 16 years, and each year I sent at least $5-6 million to the central bank in unclaimed funds, which means we had not had customer contact for 7 years. People had died, their family didn't know they had this money hidden in the Bahamas, all sorts of stuff happens. One woman was married and she said her husband didn't treat her well and her father had left her that money. And so she always said if she died, the central bank could have it, but if he died, she'd come back and claim it, and he died. And so she came back and claimed it.
Wow.
$2 million. Yeah, all sorts of crazy stuff.
It's quite obvious she wasn't looking around her.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. Okay, so those three things that they did, the IMF was satisfied and they gave the stamp of approval, and they didn't write us up for our disaster relief because they felt that we had a plan in place. This was 2018. Guys, what happened in 2019?
Dorian.
Okay, very, very good. Very good. And so here it is, the big bad regulators who are always on our back, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And they save our life. They make us put that in place and we was mad. Right? But are we not thankful?
We're thankful, but we are thankful, grateful, but there was lots of monies and lots of other stuff that came in.
Yeah, but
That
still,
was
if we
still
did not,
unaccounted for.
yeah,
But
if we did not
sticking
have that,
sticking to the point,
yeah,
we were
sticking to the
ready.
point, yeah, it's a
We were
good thing
ready.
that we had that in place to assist us, okay? Because
Yes,
we would have further been downgraded and all these different things. Okay. So again, just an idea of the international regulators and what they do. And again, most of the time, these things are to protect us, but they are expensive and you have to organize them. Like we had to fork out $900,000, you know, but thank God we did, because this the first time in 82 years, it was a category 5 and we had excessive rain. So I think we got 14 million for excessive rain and 11 million for category 5, something to that effect. Okay. If we didn't have that, we would have been in a worse state than we are. Okay. So thank God. Lakeisha, you want to say something?
Yes, on behalf of the big bad regulators, right? So again, I am an insurance regulator, and we have where our licensees have to have a certain amount of capital, capital injection before you can even be approved by the Insurance Commission. And again, it is for the benefit of the policyholder first and the insurance company, because in the event that the company has to go into liquidation or anything happens, and the company has to close, of course, we need to ensure, or our mandate is to ensure the protection of policyholders. And so we want to make sure that there is something there, liquid, that the policyholders can get. Because there are other persons to the top of the food chain who are entitled to certain funds when companies dissolve. And so, the big bad regulators are not so bad in some cases. We look out for the policyholder, and we just try to make sure that capital is met, and so that at the time of anything unfortunate, then of course there's something that the policyholders can look forward to receiving. Just like what you said, as it relates to funding.
Yeah, and you were so right, Kirsten. But we, of course, we only looking at the bottom line, and we don't have that $900,000 right now. And
I understand.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah. That's all it is. So as far as we know, you trying to wipe us out, but we know that it's best.
You don't appreciate it. You don't appreciate it at that moment, but when an unfortunate event comes, absolutely, then you can be indemnified.
We right there. Oh Lord, Tristan, thank you. Oh Lord. Yeah. Okay, good, very good. Eddie?
Yes, in reference to the big bad regulator, let's not forget now, they only decided to show their teeth after the whole Clico disaster, when Clico was allowed to close down and all the persons end up losing their insurance, or they wasn't able to claim their insurance and all that, and some insurance lapse and all that. So their view was more reactive as it was proactive, because at that time, if the proper mechanism was in place, the whole Clico fiasco wasn't gonna happen. And you see the government had that.
Yes, you are
Just want to say something, please? To that one, I came into place, right, as a result of the thing. We are the Office of the Registrar of Insurance Committee. Before that, insurance fell underneath the central bank regulation. But that's like you saying terrorism financing, counterterrorism financing only came in effect after 9/11. I mean, that's not fair to say they were insuring a thief or whatnot. We are responsible because
but the foresee, but
you couldn't foresee legal. You couldn't foresee September 11. There's certain things that, yes, there are things that are red flags in place, but the criminals are learning just as fast as the people who are countering. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to learn to get us.
As insurance, so they could not foresee that a company, I mean, everybody knows in common sense, you supposed to have some type of bond, some type of fund in place. Just
Eddie, we are always reactive. We are never proactive, Eddie. We are always reactive.
But what about
exactly. And that's my point.
We always reactive. Something must happen.
But most companies should put stuff in reserve.
Agreed, but those things came into place because stuff happened. So the reason why to take it out of insurance, seatbelts are more important because they saw people fly through the windshield. Like stoplights are important because they see people running through the stop sign. So like these things happen because someone bucked their toe. So we
rules
learn
and regulations are made as things occur. Okay.
Reactive. Yeah, we are not proactive. We are reactive.
Reactive.
You put the caution
and still some other, and it's still some other industries. And it's still some other industries that still doesn't have the proper mechanisms in place to ensure a disaster. It's like you almost could foresee it happening, but you know, successive governments just keep kicking the can down the road, and then eventually, when it do happen, then all of a sudden, overnight they're going to enact the law and put it in a regulatory framework to mitigate against what has already happened. And so that is something, if we haven't learned anything from CLECO and these other situations what happened in the Bahamas, it's only a matter of time.
Eddie, we don't learn. We don't learn. It happens, Eddie. That's
and even and the thing about it is, Ms. Bullard, is sometimes even we're being reactive, like you say, and like we know, but sometimes some of the policies, rules, and regulations that are put in place are not thought through thoroughly.
No, we had to put them in place. Like these 40 recommendations, like you say, we need to be trained. We need to understand. We need to see the effects of when you put them in place. And then, you know, so we are still all on a learning curve, right? We are still on a learning curve. Yeah. So we'll get it right eventually. Hopefully nobody dies.
Hopefully.
Hopefully the whole industry doesn't fall away before we get it right.
No, it won't. It won't.
Yeah.
It's needed.
Yes.
It's necessary.
Yes. Okay, guys. Very good. Very good. Okay, so any questions about our good and bad regulators who help us and only do what is good for us? The thing is that we need international representation, okay? Because like I said, both Ryan Pinder and Peter Turner has had fights with them. We need the international representation. No seat at the table. Nobody makes the decision for the Bahamas. When they say Bahamas, nobody there to say no. You know, so you need that.
Ms. Bullock, can you imagine if we did not have international person?
Okay.
For the Bahamas? Okay then.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. I know. We just get left behind, left, right.
Oh my God.
Carl Bethel did sit on the Cfatf for 1 year. And he was able to get some insight and see how their technical department works. And, you know, they still found a way to blacklist us. But nevertheless, we have more inside information. So all of you future leaders, please get out there. Okay? And get together.
One last thing, we have a colleague, especially to work. There are a lot of persons outside of the political sphere who sit on different panels. Like, you know, we had the FAT, they did the review for the Bahamas, say about, I think 2017, 2018.
Yeah, 2017.
So how it is that we now sit on the review committee for other countries. So it's not just that we need to have representation. We need to have good relationships with these countries. Someone being advocate for us to say, hey, no man, Bahamas is like us and they can make it work and they can make it happen. You would be surprised.
Or we can call them and they will implement this policy or something, working on it, something. But if nobody is there.
Correct. Who are advocating not just in the Bahamas, outside the Bahamas.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Who sits on these boards the whole EU, the presidents, all the permanent secretaries and everything, that's who's sitting on these boards. And so when they call France name, they right there to advocate for France or Germany or what have you. And just like you said, our 217 report, that wasn't only done in the Bahamas. Not only the Bahamas was found to be deficient in 22, Spain, Switzerland, all of them were deficient. Okay? All of them took a staggered approach. Okay, not only us, but they have representation and we don't. Or
And
they
now
are the presidents and we don't. You know?
Correct. And now how Barbados is up for it. We have someone in the room to say, hey, no, we were in a similar situation. I can attest that I as the Bahamas can attest that we did X, Y, and Z and it worked. So I believe Barbados should now get the same blood that we've got. So yeah, it's a lot of that happening in the background.
Oh, they ain't gonna do that to that lady out of Barbados because you see, she already been to Congress.
I know.
She don't play. Before you all do my review, I can let you all know who I is and what I expect. What's your name, was Leo? What's her name? Y'all know her. She don't play.
She's
so
amazing.
She being proactive. Yeah.
She don't play.
Yeah, she being proactive. Y'all ain't gonna
that's
write
the
up
one.
a report on her to cause our country get blacklisted.
Yeah, that's the one who said Rihanna's a national hero.
Yeah, but she gave her some award.
Give her the honorary title. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have a problem with every government, not just Bahamians. You know, the women trying her best out.
She's still doing a good job, Eddie. She's doing a good job.
I mean, the whole controversy was the controversy was she was considered a national hero when they have a lot of more persons in Barbados who are deserving of the yeah, who give their life.
Don't forget
give their life for the
Don't forget it's who you know.
But let's not forget.
Rihanna gave that money.
Yeah.
I say Rihanna gave lots of money.
Rihanna, I'm sure she gave a lot of money.
And she carries.
But listen, that when she was given that title, that was an election blood because that happened about a few weeks before actually the election. So that was more of an election, a re-election tactic, I suppose. Well, that was a part of it, but it was just so convenient that
you're biased for politicians now because you have a thing with politicians. She's doing a good job, period. Like outside of that, she is just doing a good job. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think she's very radical. She's good.
Yes. Okay, guys. Good discussions. Okay. So any other questions on chapter 3 or can we go to chapter 4? We good? We understand the international regulators. And like I said, let me just give you a visual. Let me share my screen just so we would know what we're looking at. So of course we saw these 40 recommendations, right? And then from these 40 recommendations, Bahamian Law, you see 125 pages, right? Again, this is the proceeds of crime act. I think the FATRA this too. We go to the table of contents, see what you're looking for, and then central bank is the oldest regulator, so I normally use their guideline. Then you see 85 pages of guidelines. Again, go to the table of contents and look for what you're looking for. Don't read it, don't sit down and try to read the whole document. You'll fall asleep and miss what you're looking for. Okay, but that's how it works. All right, and then you put in internal policy in your organization. All right, guys. So chapter 4 goes on to talk about the Bahamian legal system. And let's just look right in the central bank guidelines. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 acts that make up the Bahamian anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism legislative framework. This is the Anti-Terrorism Act, the Financial Reporting Transaction Act, the FIU Act would it's being updated right now, the Proceeds of Crime Act, and the Travelers Currency Act. Okay, and these they involve creating requirements for reporting entities must follow. They outline terrorism financing. They create a government agency, the FIU, to receive suspicious matters. They create a regulator to oversee compliance with the legislation. They name the law enforcement and government bodies that will have access to the reports that they receive about the suspicious matters related to money laundering and terrorist financing. And like I said, we saw where they came from, the FATRA, the FATF with the 40 recommendations. And then of course, this is Bahamian Law. And we just want to look at two things once you work in the financial services sector that you have a duty of. And so you have a duty to failure to disclose. So you cannot fail to disclose if you know of anybody money laundering or terrorist financing, you are required to disclose. And so when you're onboarded to a new institution, like I said, they give you a bunch of papers for the first week and they say, read. Nobody reads, but then you sign. You're signing to say that I am aware that I cannot fail to disclose and I am aware that I cannot tip off. So we just want to look at those two. It's on page 17 and page 19, and we'll have somebody read for us. Who wants to volunteer to read? I don't see any hands.
17 and 19.
Oh, okay. So I'm trying to pull it up and again. Sorry?
You said 17 and 19?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull the page up right now. So failure to disclose, and then we are going to read. I can let you read 13 and 14, okay? And then we'll go to the penalties. Now, these two are normally multiple choice questions on the exam. They have the same penalty, but people always get them wrong.
But different. What page are you on, Miss? What page are you on, Miss Bullard?
I on my screen. Look on my screen.
Or read. You want to read the screen?
Yeah, read from the screen. Yeah, this is the law. Remember, let me go back up to the top so you can see what this is talking about. Remember now, we just looked at the central bank guidelines, and in your book, it tells you what makes up the Bahamian anti-money laundering framework. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, then it says right here, the Proceeds of Crime Act 218, correct? Okay, and so we want to look at how what Bahamian law looks like. And so here it is. This is it. Came out on the 25th of May, 2018. Proceeds of Crime Act 218. This is Bahamian law. Okay, and so two things out of the Bahamian law that we all have a duty of. We cannot fail to disclose and we cannot tip off. Okay, and then there are penalties if we fail to disclose, and there's a penalty if we tip off. Now we all on the same page?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to go over and see page 17 and then page 19. So we're going down to 17 and you can read off the screen.
Oh.
Right?
Okay,
good. So let's go down. And then, like I said, these are two multiple choice questions on the exam. The answer is the same, but persons get one right and one wrong every time. I don't understand why. But who's our reader? The hand going down?
I read it.
Okay. Okay, so go ahead. One person read 13, one read 14. And then since we have three persons, the last person.
I'll read 14.
Okay, so go ahead.
Failure to disclose by nominated officers. 1. A nominated officer commits an offense if A, the nominated officer knows or suspects or has reasonable grounds for knowing or suspecting the other person, that another person is engaged in money laundering or unidentified risk activity. B, any information or other matter on which the knowledge of suspicion of the nominated officer is based or which gives reasonable grounds for such knowledge or suspicion came to him in consequence of a disclosure made under section 19(1)(a). And C, if he does not make the required disclosure as soon as a practicable after the information or other matter comes to him. Number 2, for the purpose of this section, a required disclosure is a disclosure of the information or other matter. A, to a focal point officer. B, in the form of manner, if any, prescribed for by the Financial Intelligence Unit. Number 3, a person does not commit an offense under this section if he has a reasonable excuse for not disclosing information or other matter.
Okay, now tell me what could be a reasonable excuse. And again, this is what is making me mad about our law. Okay, because around the world, there's a group called FinCEN out of the United States. It's the Financial Crime Unit, right? And apparently somebody hacked into the Financial Crime Unit. BuzzFeed got the information and they put it all over the internet, right? And what they did is they saw that many suspicious transactions reports that were filed like 160 days after it actually happened. The reports were incomplete. They couldn't investigate based on the information. They asked for more information and never received it, right? And so if you go to these seminars, you will have the FIU continuously saying, nobody files STRs. Nobody is sending in the suspicious. We need the industry to do their job. Okay, and around the world, that's a major complaint. However, they didn't enforce. They're not enforcing, and that's why around the world you see that they are updating these FIU laws to give them more powers to, I guess, fine or investigate companies who are not sending in proper information. So this right here causes people to not take it seriously, because if you have a reasonable excuse, I was scared the people would give me. Is that reasonable? Any lawyers in this class?
No.
Any lawyers? But tell me how that sounds. When I go to court, I just say I had a reasonable excuse why it take me 300 days to file this FI, to disclose. Right? So we have to, stuff like this in the law causes these problems.
But Ms. Bullard, I feel like once people are properly trained from inception, like you have, when you know you're going into certain fields and like we say, we experience these things, so we are reactive. So based on things happening, we're making our rules and regulations, policies and procedures. And so when you're bringing on new people, you have to train them properly so they'll be able to be proactive.
Child, Miss, you work with human beings. You work in these organizations.
Yes.
These people who overwork and underpaid, they have time to write up a story.
No.
They have time to fill out a form and
they too
question them and get subpoenaed to come to court.
They too busy in their feelings.
Right. And then when you go to court, the person who you report walking right outside you, y'all never been to court, but the prisoner stare back at you the whole time.
Oh yes, ma'am. So
it's a murderer.
He's staring you right in your eye.
Murderer staring you down.
Right in your eyes.
They acquit him and he walking out the door with you.
You are him walking out. Mother kiss.
You get to see him bust you, But anyway, yours, those
the slackers are the slack.
Yeah, so please, this would, and these have been the complaints. It ain't my business. I ain't getting in that. These people ain't confidential. Like, I told you the story where the guy said he worked in the casino and 2 o'clock in the morning when the poker dealers come in, they are non-coherent girls. I told you that story. That's another class.
No,
yeah, you mentioned it
right
in the first class.
Right, he said, Miss Bullet, them people ain't gonna say it's me. I showing up to court, this unknown, this poker dealer know me. And he's tipped me good. I ain't showing, I ain't telling nobody. I say, sir, compliance is everybody's business. The compliance officer is not in the casino 2 a.m. Oh, but she better watch the camera. I said, but you need to drop her an anonymous note. He said, not me. And they go into training every year. So hopefully now people take it more seriously and they understand. There is, I think, 70,000 Black women in America missing right now. Just because people mind their business.
Minding their own business. Don't care.
There you go. There you go. Okay, so that's how serious it is now. They in 218 they upgraded the fine. Okay, and I there's more training and there's more awareness. Okay, because of the 21 crimes, and which includes like human trafficking and smuggling and all of that. Okay, so I think people are taking it seriously, but yeah, know that once you work in the financial institution, the financial services sector, you have a duty to disclose. Okay, all right, thank you. Who's the next person who reading tipping off?
Tipping off. A
Hold on
person.
1 minute, Miss Bullet. I'm not clear on 13.2.
Okay, what about it?
13.2,
Section.
and a required disclosure is a disclosure of the information or other matter of focal point officer, which means
Yes.
that, go ahead.
They call like, it could be the MLRO or the compliance officer, or whoever is the officer nominated to carry out that function.
Okay.
Okay, what were you confused about, the focal point officer or? Not just the law don't be in layman's terms. That's why I asked if any lawyers in video. Ms. Bullet is be confused with like what they trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't write in plain terms.
No.
Right.
And
Okay, but
it's so
basically what they
difficult
saying
to
is
learn.
whomever is the appointed officer or the normal nominated officer is required to disclose if they receive a disclosure or some information.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, because once the front line, like this, they're in the background. So if somebody off the front line say, I suspect this person, they have to investigate and then make a decision as to whether or not this warrants going to the FIU. Okay, and then the FIU looks at it and say, does it warrant sending it to the police to do an investigation?
Ms. Bullet.
Yes.
Yeah, I think with 13.2 is it basically I've just given a definition of what disclosure is. And so it says required disclosure is a disclosure of information to any other matter that is made to a focal point officer in the form and manner in the form and manner if prescribed for by the Financial Intelligence Unit. So essentially what B is saying is in the manner that they said normally they would set out a procedure and way that you would make the disclosure, whether it's in written form, I guess it would be in written form and in a
They have
particular
a
manner.
website now, so it used to be written,
Right.
now you upload it. Okay, good. All right,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's all. So the purpose of the law, it won't be a disclosure if it's not made to a focal point officer. Now I don't know who the focal point officer is.
Again,
but-
whoever they appoint in the institution, remember
Right.
now, this approved function,
An
not
approved person, right?
right, approved person or approved function that reports,
Right.
is regulated and approved. And so
Right,
not
and it-
anybody, like if I'm not the MLRO, the FIU cannot accept a suspicious transaction report on behalf of the Royal Bank. I can't represent the Royal Bank if I'm not the approved person.
Right.
The law says anybody could send in a suspicious transaction report, but you can't send it in on behalf of a company that you're not approved
Okay.
for. Right.
Right.
But like
Right.
I say,
So you would be
my friend, one
So
of
you're
my
the focal.
yeah, one of my classmates, one person in my class, he reporting the people downtown. I did the jewelry store. I tell you all that, right? So he's
No.
sending that on behalf of his office. He's sending that on behalf of himself as a concerned citizen of the Bahamas.
No, he needs to go through the right procedure.
But no, he don't have, no, he's
No,
not sending
he's
on
not
behalf of his
representing a company. He's
Yeah,
sending
he's
it
not
on behalf of
representing the
himself.
company.
So he's not the focal, so
Yeah.
he can do that.
He can
And
do
you
that.
need that. That is needed.
Yeah, he's
Because
doing
you
that
have a lot of
on
things
behalf of the citizen of the Bahamas.
to
He is
Bahamas
saying
are
there's a
concerned
customer.
citizen
Yeah.
of the Bahamas.
Yeah, right.
And,
Yeah, you just can't file it on behalf of the company that you're not approved.
No.
Right.
and also to with subsection 3, it talks about reasonable excuse. Under this, reasonable excuse could be duress too. Like if you under duress or you being threatened, that could be a reasonable excuse for not disclosing information. So let us say you scared as a compliance officer to report the person in casino or whatever like that. You could say, well, if you could prove that you under some type of duress or you feel that your life is in danger, the law doesn't allow you to put yourself in a position.
But reasonable, come on, reasonable, but who determines what is reasonable?
But
they would have to define what is reasonable excuse. Like I said, you can't just say
the problem there.
But Ms. Bullard, I feel like everything internally within a company should be done discreetly. I don't think
they should. Yeah.
I feel like it should be internal, where we have our own type of communicating or our own signs or signal where we're giving the sign to say this person needs to be watched. No one needs to know that I am the person who's actually doing it. The only thing that person would know is that when that focal person, whatever, I don't think it should be
It is done discreetly. However, you may have to show up in court. So when you have to show up in court, then
that can be addressed. Well, that can be addressed because there's provisions in the Evidence Act where you can give evidence by virtue of camera, but the camera don't necessarily have to be on you. So you could testify against someone, but that is something that they have to apply for. So the prosecutor, whoever, they would have if you're in Fairfield, like you could testify against the next person, but your vision, you'll be obscured in the camera. But they could make provisions in the act, in the relevant act, to make it to protect persons who eventually have to testify against the person, where your identity would not be revealed. But like I said, that's another defect or a lacuna in the law where they need to fill to make it easier for compliance officers to cooperate in that regard. So it can be done.
Yep, you're right. You can't fail to disclose in the end. You can't fail to disclose.
Nah, you can't simply say, "Oh, you want to disclose because you getting a big fat tip." That's
right.
That's not a reasonable excuse, right?
Right. Okay, Priya, you have a question?
Not really a question. I just an observation that shouldn't the senior officers or director of the compliance department or the relevant department that would have to make these reports, why does an employee, like a low level, not really low level, but entry or associate level employee, have to be the one to testify rather than the senior officer or director testifying and then just presenting what that employee found? I mean,
because
that in
the
itself
employee
is
came in contact.
I mean, I'm not really sure, but I just wondering why.
Yeah, compliance is everybody's business, Priya. Like there's no, if that guy didn't tell us that was happening at the poker tables, 2 a.m. in the morning, compliance in there. Right. So we are working together as a team.
That's the person that came in contact with that discrepancy.
Correct.
For that person. So that's why that would be that person, because he can tell the story best.
Yeah. Correct. And he is more aware. Right.
Okay, so they just,
it's not that everybody has to do their part.
Right. Okay. I understand.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, let's go on to tipping off.
Tipping off. A person commits an offense if he knows or suspects that 1, any disclosure under this part has been made, or 2, any actions has been taken by the Financial Intelligence Unit in relation to anything under this part. And he makes a disclosure to another person, which is likely to prejudice any investigation, which might be conducted following the disclosure referred to in paragraph A1 and A2.
Okay. So let's look at the penalties now. Now, this first part of the penalties is where everybody gets confused. They go right there. But they say this is under sections 9 to 11. but these are sections 12 to 14, right? So we have to go to 15(2). Anyone who commits an offense under section 12 to 14. Okay, continue reading, please.
Is liable. Okay. I'm reading from there.
Yeah. Any person who
Okay.
commits the offense.
Any person, a person who commits an offense under section 12 to 14 is liable on summary conviction to imprisonment or a term not exceeding 12 years or to a fine not exceeding $500,000 or to both, or on conviction on indictment or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 20 years or to a fine or to both.
Okay, so please document that. That is the penalty for both fines. I guess people just be guessing, they get one wrong and one right. I don't know what's happened, but most answered wrong question. Second most answered wrong question. Okay. Yeah. Okay, guys. Very good. Very good. At least so we have a visual of the law. We see how it's written. Sometimes you need an interpreter. We understand the framework. We want to look now at our Travelers Currency Declaration Act. And that was updated as well because there was a loophole in there. Whereas if you were going to America, you had to declare that you had $10,000 or more on cash on your person. And what happened is we had a good doctor who was going to Jamaica. And I don't know if any of you ever went to either Jamaica or Canada or Cuba on the domestic side. You're not going through the United States. And that $10,000 disclosure was American law. And she had 200,000 US cash and she was going on Air Jamaica. And when they put a suitcase through the thing, they saw the $200,000 cash and they handcuffed her and they arrested her. Okay, and so her husband used to be a politician, so of course he called the prime minister and they released her, but they said they couldn't give her back her money. And he politely told them that the 10,000 is American law, not Bahamian law, and so therefore give her back her money. Okay, so then of course immediately the US was on our back to make sure that it became Bahamian law. Okay, and so now no matter which way you go, if you go to Andros with $10,000 cash, you better declare that you have $10,000 cash or they can confiscate it. And they say, even if you are in a group, you know, if you were just significant other women, you have to say how much you have. You can't say, you know, because they do search you and check if they assume that you do. And they must be working with the hotels because right after the law came out, there was some Canadian guys that came down for spring break. They went to the casino, they won $30,000 and they decided that we going on Air Canada. We ain't going to the US. We just, each of us could take $5,000. I think it was 5 or 6 of them. And they went through as a group and they were stopped and searched. And the $30,000 was found between the 5 of them. They were arrested and charged and their $30,000 was confiscated. Then we had somebody else who won like $50,000 or $60,000. Same thing, tried to give everybody a group some of it and they got found out. Okay, so please don't go taking your island documents away and not disclosing. Okay, now it's required law for not only Americans or going to America, but leaving from any port in the Bahamas. Okay, you must declare. Okay, guys. Any questions or concerns?
Ms. Bullard, you really think with the cruise ship, not the cruise ship, the yachts?
Of course not. Oh, of course.
Okay then. Okay then.
Darling, these
Yes, ma'am.
laws are for the majority.
Okay then.
Not the elite. We
Okay
support
then.
these poor people laws, darling, and you'll get
And
better.
so, and you know, I grew up with my mom always saying, the rich, if they steal, they land on their feet.
Yep.
And as I grew, I understood exactly what she meant. You steal $1 million, you're gonna land on your feet. You go in, well, it's white collar and blue collar. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay then.
Yeah. And if you look in the financial institutions, all of the delinquency is we was playing golf and my buddy said he needed $100,000. So I gave him that loan because he's my golf buddy. And I know he couldn't afford it and I know he would never pay. And so we could write that off in a couple of weeks.
So
But you
bad.
try that, darling, to the fullest extent of the law. We
but
can take
listen to me.
$50 of your pay every week and you can pay
Every
that back.
week.
We
But
can
listen
repossess
to
your
me.
house even.
Miss Bullard,
You
is
can
so
pay that
bad.
back.
These big companies, they are delinquent in I'm talking about over $400 and something thousand. They pay that no mind. A file come to you and it's $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. They running behind the.
Yep, lock them up.
Yes.
Lock them up.
You're read legal. Be taking this to legal. Really?
You all read Animal Farm in high school?
I did.
Some of us are equal, but some are more equal than others. All of us are equal, but some of us are more equal than others. Yeah, read that. That's the true story about this world today. Okay, so like I say, if you understand how things work, you wouldn't be so uptight or you watch Dirty Money, you see how all these criminals they getting away. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And I
Miss
watched.
Bullet used to have a heart attack over these advice when they were taking it.
I watched a movie where the white collar crime had just started. I think when there was a person, a gentleman who got away with millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars because they never used to pay it no mind. There was no penalty for it. Absolutely none.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep. Not surprised. None surprises Miss Bullet anymore. Not, but just knowledge. You have to have knowledge and you have to have wisdom. Okay. And if you do a little bit of research, you'll be very, very surprised of what the truth is. Okay?
Ms. Bullard.
Yes?
Is it sometimes that the small persons doesn't go in or do not know all of the rights or privileges that they have at times during hardship? Or they don't show up to the bank?
They're for us. They for the elite. They are there, but for the elite. That's why I say increase, and you need at least five. You need 5 revenue streams.
Yes.
Okay. You have 9 to 5 is only to pay bills.
That's it.
If you want your children to go to private school, if you want to go on vacation, if you want gas in your car right now, Bria, you better get a side hustle. Okay, because you can't even afford gas no more.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you need 5 revenue streams. You need to build up your network, and that's how you will succeed. Because and increase your knowledge. Read and be abreast of what is going on. Because half of the time we like Debbie said, we don't know the benefits. We don't know what out there because we are unaware. We don't know how the system works. Okay, so please keep on an upward trend of increasing your knowledge. Knowledge is power. Okay.
When you apply it.
Yes, yes.
Miles Monroe said when you apply it.
Yep.
When it's the right knowledge is power when it's the right knowledge.
Right.
Because some people could go around thinking that it was knowledge when it wasn't knowledge. Okay.
No, we spending all our time Facebooking and rowing on social media and TikToking. We ain't read no books. We definitely read the newspaper.
For real.
We following Rihanna. we ain't following the Securities Commission, you know. So yeah, balance, people, balance. You know, balance. There's a way to win this game. Okay. Okay, could you put your full government name for the register, please? Because we still have some aliases out there. Miss Bullet didn't know everybody yet. Or you're getting mark absent. There's a lot of people. It's a big class. If you don't know how to So yes, hover over your name and make sure we can see your full name, please. And any questions or concerns?
No, ma'am.
No, we good? Clear as mud?
One question, Ms. Bullock.
Okay, go ahead. I listening.
Oh, how soon after we submit our homework do we know the grade?
You'll get it next Friday.
What is
Oh,
homework?
okay.
Who did I say what is homework?
Darlene. I mean, what
Go
homework
read your
do we have?
email, Darlene. That
Oh,
I
I haven't read it as yet. I'm sorry, Ms. Bullard. Okay.
So it's 1 week after you submit?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I haven't submitted it yet. I just was curious.
Okay, and then remember I suggested questions 2 and 3. You don't want to wait till the end of the class to know that you speak Spanish and Miss Polita speak French. Okay, make sure we on the same page because a lot of people write a lot of fluff and miss the point. So we make sure you fluffing Miss Polita up. Okay, we get valid points. Okay, I still have some people, I don't see the name. Ian. Who is Ian? Okay, Ian, my absent then.
Oh, that's me. Let me that's my other device. Sorry.
Eddie, what happening? How much are you in here, Eddie? Yeah, Eddie. Eddie, you making sure.
No, that's on my computer. Sorry. I just switched my computer.
That you.
All right. All right. Okay, guys. Ms. Bullitt is very intrigued and very encouraged by the engagement and the level of intellect. I'm very pleased. This is a very large class, so it takes a little bit longer than normal. I hope you don't get, a lot of people come in late, so we use the first 30 to 45 minutes with the newspaper, and it's important to have those discussions we want to practice because like I say, if we are compliance officers, I mean, these are the conversations every morning. Ms. Good wouldn't know what's happening, what's going on, and the 1 million meetings you have to go to. This is what we're talking about. Okay, so please, keep reading, keep sharing, and be patient because, like I said, it is large and a lot of people each week. So next week we had quite a number of persons. So just to ensure that we don't use up all the time. So today we had Bria, Antonia, Eddie, Debbie Ann, Khalil, Anika. Is it Tequila or Forbes?
Tequila.
Tequila, okay.
Tequila.
Annika.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. And Johnson. No, Johnson, you didn't. Yeah, you did. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So please, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 10 persons today. So you 10, no newspaper for you next week. Now, if you do your 5% next week, then that's fine.
Hello.
Sorry.
Did you call my name? Natasha Curtis.
Let me see Natasha Curtis if I got your name.
No, you didn't. No.
No?
Well, Marion Rose.
No, I thought Natasha did.
Antonia nodded. I don't know if I heard my name.
Hey, y'all give Miss Bullet a break. Y'all don't do all the bullets, all the guns, so on. Antonia nodded. Natasha Curtis. You all fight for your points. Let Miss Bullet thief your points.
Exactly, because I'm working in the science department. I coming off the streets.
Okay, Natasha Curtis. Okay. And Marion. Okay. Thurston, you want me to put you down too? You tell us for the newspaper, or you tell us for the experience, Thurston. And Trevor, yeah.
It was my experiences.
Right. Okay, so next week for newspaper for you.
Yeah, I talk about my experiences too. I don't know newspaper.
Okay.
I'm watching Netflix.
Rodney, because he was very quiet this week, Rodney, but that's fine.
So sometimes they talk already because he want to try to make it seem like the prime minister ain't doing nothing.
You and Eddie need to go offline and have all the routes you all want. You have all the routes you all need, okay? Okay, let me finish that. Then we get that.
I only said I think we'll send him off to Rihanna. I think Rihanna. Yeah.
Yeah, you are doing.
He's finding a way to talk, but these people
I'll get it off your chest. Okay. Lucia, you said that you didn't have the welcome note?
No, Mom, I don't have it.
Okay. And you put your thing in the chat?
My email?
Uh-huh.
I sent it to you.
You sent it to me. Okay, let me just get that out. But anybody else, if there's no other questions or concerns, y'all have a wonderful weekend, and remember to take some time to unwind and feel good, and then take some time to study. Okay.
I have a question. I mean, the only thing it was just a question about the textbook.
Sorry, you was breaking up. I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. No, I said I just had a question about the textbook, but it's not really important. So nobody says so. We could do it.
Be important for you.
Pardon?
No question is not important.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it was just about the textbook. So the cases, and then there's a section with, so at the first, I guess, back of the book, at the appendix, there's the quiz, the practice questions, and then cases. Then there's the cases with the construction paper or the color paper. And then at part 5, it's a quiz. I just wondering if this, the actual back part of the book past the construction paper, is that what we're gonna be doing the review from? Or is that?
No, I have a separate review sheet that I'll send out in probably week 3 or 4, and I'll assign persons to do the review. So at the back of the book, after the chapters is 8 chapters, and they're like 2 or 3 pages each. Then there's an appendix of questions that will possibly be multiple choice questions. There's some case studies, and then there are excerpts that we just took off the internet to share, for awareness training and stuff like that. And so you can there's a question and answer sheet for different, if you work in accounting firms or law firms or banks or what have you, you're welcome to do that. And all of that is just, like I say, awareness training and practice in preparation for the exam. And reading out there, just readings, but we separated, like we couldn't number it because they were from different parts of the internet.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why we tried to, put the construction paper in there, so you would see this is a different thing, either question and answer or topic.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, so do all in your spare time, just do it for practice, and let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, then.
Okay. Great. Okay, guys, very good. No further questions or concerns. You'll have a fabulous weekend, and I'll see you all again next week.
All right, have a good one.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.